the solutions to many of our challenges lie in the oceans. But in light of these new challenges, we must learn to adapt in step with change. Ocean Space Center is the key to our ocean-based industries of tomorrow, a cross-disciplinary center for both established and new industries that will bridge the gap between resource and knowledge economy, connect and develop all disciplines within the maritime industries. In Ocean Space Center, simulations and model experiments will run in parallel to prevent accidents and damage to the environment. This is where industry and researchers will develop new concepts for renewable and cleaner energy production, as well as efficient energy consumption. At Ocean Space Center, future maritime transport systems will be created and tested, like autonomous systems that open up new markets for shipping and advanced technologies. This is where our knowledge and experience about materials and maritime constructions put us in the forefront of developing solutions for emerging industries. At Ocean Space Center, Norway's technological advantage will provide the key to sustainable aquaculture concepts and harvesting of species.
잠시 후 2022 제16회 세계 해양 포럼 오프닝 행사가 시작될 예정입니다. 참석하신 네 외빈께서는 모두 장내로 입장하셔서 착석해 주시기를 부탁드립니다. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The opening ceremony of World Ocean Forum 2022 will begin shortly. All the distinguished guests, please enter the hall and be seated. 원활한 행사 진행을 위해서 휴대전화는 진동 모드로 바꿔주시길 부탁드리며 본 포럼에서는 한국어와 영어 동시 통역이 제공될 예정입니다. 통역 필요하신 분께서는 수신기 채널을 1번 한국어, 2번 영어로 고정하셔서 사용하시면 되겠고요. 수신기가 없으시거나 사용하기 어려운 분들께서는 안내 요원의 도움을 받으시면 되겠습니다. We provide simultaneous interpretation of Korean and English during our forum, so please tune your receivers into channel number 1 for Korean and 2 for English. Please put your cell phones or mobile devices on silent mode to prevent any interruptions. And thank you again for joining us here and online as our forum is being live streamed on YouTube channel as well. 네, 본 행사는 하이브리드 형태로 진행되고 있어서 오프라인과 온라인 병행 진행되고 있습니다. 공식 온라인 채널, 유튜브 채널에서도 생중계되고 있는데요. 전 세계에서 실시간으로 접속해주고 계십니다. 다시 한번 진심으로 감사드립니다. Again, the opening ceremony of World Ocean Forum will begin shortly. All the distinguished guests, please make your way into the hall and be seated. 잠시 후 개막식이 시작됩니다. 착석을 부탁드립니다. 고맙습니다.
For sustainable development and check the trends of the global maritime industries faster than anyone else. We invite you to the 16th World Ocean Forum to be held in Lotte Hotel Busan for 3 days from October 25th to the 27th.
Busan, Korea is already reaching the entire world, like ocean waves that travel far and wide. It's Busan, the perfect World Expo city, transforming our world, navigating toward a better future.
The ocean is a major source of life, food and livelihoods for 3 billion people across the planet. For over 60 years, UNESCO's Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission has been working at the heart of the United Nations to generate the knowledge we need to conserve and manage this global marine ecosystem. We coordinate sciences, observations, data, and tsunami warning systems. We deliver knowledge, scientific understanding, and capacities to ensure the ocean is managed sustainably and equitably for the benefit of humanity and the planet alike. As ocean pollution, acidification, and warming grow, IOC's role has become crucial as the UN platform to discuss the increasingly relevant issue of ocean health and climate change, in bringing nations together and fostering exchanges between governments, society, and scientists, as well as in providing to the extended oceanographic community access to data, information, and science. From UN conventions to community-based meetings, we bring to the table authoritative, vital ocean data to inform policy decisions, to support the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, and ultimately to harmonize humanity's relationship with the planet. To face a climate crisis of planetary scale, we are bringing together the world's leading expertise, decision makers, action-driven innovators, and engaged citizens around the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. Join us to co-design and co-deliver transformative ocean science solutions to create the ocean we want. You too can be part of the ocean knowledge revolution.
This is the news at 7 p.m. The new climate report from the UN says that cuts in enough to reduce greenhouse gases. A radical change is needed in how food is produced. That is to say, fewer calories.
We're always told we need to stop. Stop driving. Stop flying. Stop using plastic bags. Stop eating meat. Stop ignoring the science. But science also tells us that just stopping won't be enough on its own. If we're going to save our future, we also need to start. Start thinking outside the box. Start managing marine resources more productively. Start developing more climate-friendly technology for waterborne transport. With innovation, we can rid the oceans of microplastics. The forces of nature are fundamentally sustainable. We must make the most of it. The world needs more ideas. Solutions not yet thought of. This is not the time to stop.
안내 말씀드립니다. 잠시 후 세계해양 포럼 개막식이 시작됩니다. 함께해 주신 내빈 여러분께서는 세계해양 포럼 개막식 이제 곧 시작합니다. 함께해 주신 내빈 여러분 모두 착석해 주시기를 바랍니다. The opening ceremony of World Ocean Forum will begin now. All the distinguished guests, please be seated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to World Ocean Forum 2022. I'm Harry Jung, your MC for the opening ceremony, and it's my great honor to be here with all of you. On behalf of our hosts, let me extend my deepest gratitude to all of you for joining us here and online. 여러분 안녕하십니까? 2022 세계 해양 포럼에 오신 것을 환영합니다. 저는 행사 진행을 맡은 정혜리입니다. 반갑습니다. 2007년 시작해서 올해 벌써 16회째를 맞이한 세계 해양 포럼, 대한민국을 대표하는 해양 포럼으로 자리를 잡았습니다. 지난 몇 년간 코로나19로 무관중, 비대면으로 진행하던 것이 올해는 드디어 이렇게 오프라인으로 여러분들 모시고 하이브리드 형태로 온 오프라인 합쳐서 진행할 수 있게 되었는데요. 다시 한번 주최기관인 해양수산부, 부산광역시 그리고 부산일보사를 대신하여서 진심으로 함께해 주신 모든 분들께 감사의 인사 또 환영의 인사말을 올립니다. 올해 해양 포럼에서 대주제는 초해양 시대 협력과 공존으로 번영의 길을 찾아서.
So the 2022 World Ocean Forum, the theme of this year's forum is the ocean as uniters pursuing global cooperation for the good of the planet. So in order to set the stage for the World Ocean Forum, we would like to invite the keynote speaker. In this era of the accelerated Industry 4.0 and climate change, it has become very clear that without cooperation and mutual coexistence, we cannot make even a single step forward. And to delve into this topic, we have invited the Alexa Levinson, CEO of the Pacific Environment, who has garnered a lot of attention with his port decarbonization project. So we would like to invite him to the stage, and please join me in welcoming him with a big hand.
Levinson of Pacific Environment, our keynote speaker. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. 동시 통역이 진행되고 있습니다.
Simultaneous interpretation is available, so please tune your channel to channel number 1 for Korean.
안녕하세요. 만나서 반갑습니다. It is a pleasure for me to be here and my colleagues from Pacific Environment, and I do want to start by thanking and acknowledging the leaders with us. Minister Cho Seung-wan, the Honorable Park Young-jun, the Honorable Ambassador Matthias Franke, Mr. Kim Yoon-kyum, Professor Song Hwa-cho, Professor Lee Han-sok, and Itai Madamomben. For the first time in my entire career, I am wearing white sneakers with my dress clothes. I was told by my fashion-forward Korean colleagues that I will be ultra-chic if I do so. Let me have a show of hands for a second. Who else is wearing white sneakers here? Anyone else? Okay. Tomorrow, if you wear white sneakers, I will talk to the World Ocean Forum leadership and we will create a white sneaker subcommittee. This is my first time in Busan, a city that aspires to be the center of global innovation through Expo 2030 and as the first floating maritime city. These ideas unite the city's current status as a world-leading port with its desire in the future to model how to mitigate the sea level rise that climate change will cause. Congratulations to Busan and its leaders for their hope and their vision. The oceans divide us, separating the continents and island nations from each other. They also connect us economically through trade and shipping, sustaining us as one of humanity's most important sources of food, and spiritually through shared love for the vast, wildlife-filled, watery world that makes up most of our planet's surface. The World Ocean Forum brings us together to prepare a successful global future in fields such as shipping and shipbuilding, fisheries, marine policies, and international cooperation in protecting the oceans and its communities and wildlife. I'm so pleased to be here with you. Let me tell you briefly about myself. I come from immigrants to the United States from Ukraine. I secured a law degree and surprised myself by using it to go into the field of environmental policy, which I never anticipated. I became an environmentalist in the most traditional way at first, in the first years of my career, working to protect forests from logging, endangered wildlife from disappearing, and communities from industrial air and water pollution. I never expected in these later years to spend my time and energy on issues involving TEU containers, the merits of hydrogen fuels, and port infrastructure in the Pacific Rim countries. This happened, though, because energy work and climate change work have moved to the forefront and become the organizing principle for the environmental field. Indeed, more fundamentally, climate change is becoming and needs to be the organizing principle globally for our economic life and our societies. Now today, I know I am among colleagues who are already convinced of the perils and the importance of addressing climate change. I don't need to touch your hearts with stories about the harm that climate change is causing currently. Every day and every week brings examples. The hurricane in Florida that flattened entire cities, the wildfires in my home state of California that engulf the skies of San Francisco and that wipe out entire towns, the recent notorious typhoon in this country, and the rainfall in Seoul that was the heaviest in 100 years, but probably won't be the heaviest in the next 100 years. People worry about the cost of leaving behind fossil fuels, but the loss of lives and property and economic life and businesses to these disasters totals so much more. The conference brings us together to prepare a global future. My colleagues and I at Pacific Environment are devoted to leading a clean energy conversion of the shipping industry. The conference will engage us with important discussions of policy choices, quantitative analyses, and the costs and benefits of various solutions in the marine and climate change fields. However, because I have the special honor of offering introductory remarks, and knowing that we are in solidarity in accepting the reality of climate change and the need for cooperative action, I'd like to offer some thoughts that might shape our discussions in coming days. I want to raise an alarm. I want to raise an alarm on a new form of climate denial. Now, the original climate denial was a very crude form of obstruction by those who knew better but wanted to keep profiting from fossil fuels, no matter the cost. The new climate denial is much more subtle, and it comes from within ourselves. It comes from people who accept climate change and its dangers, who accept and understand the existential danger to all of our society and to our planet. The denial comes, nonetheless, from our own complacency and what Sigmund Freud would call the immense potential of humans to deny what's right in front of them. Scientists tell us we need to act immediately and boldly because we're using up the atmosphere and the oceans, and the carbon budget that's left is running out much too fast. And yet, I hear too many confidently predicting the use of fossil fuels well into the 2040s or 2050s or even 2060, nearly 4 decades from now. Those casually predicting fossil fuel use for 40 years often see themselves, describe themselves as hard-headed realists and pragmatists, though in fact they engage in a fantasy of magical thinking, denying the clear truth in front of them. We are, all of us, already facing grave peril from current harms from climate change. Even were we to end all new greenhouse gas emissions by the end of this conference in a few days, the existing atmospheric and oceanic load from greenhouse gases would warm the Earth for many decades and produce hosts of harms. Yet some confidently suggest we can increase the carbon load, not for a few years, but for generations. In 2060, 40 years from now, virtually everybody in this room, including myself, will be off the stage and will no longer be working, except the most junior among us. Almost every government official here today, every CEO will have retired, to be replaced not just by your successor, but 40 years from now, by your successor's successor. Let's not leave these problems to them. I am not speaking today to those in the world who may be cynical and happy to defer aggressive action till after they retire. With this audience, I am talking to people who understand climate change and want to help protect our world. So you know that whatever targets we set for 2040 and 2050 and 2060, it's what we do in the coming decade, it's what we do in this next year and 3 years and 5 years that will make all the difference. The first principle, the first form of new climate denial, accepting the reality of climate change while denying the imperative of rapid and bold industrial change. The second category of the new climate denial is to over-focus on the obstacles to transition. I emphasize the word over in over-focus because there surely are many obstacles that warrant attention. It is very hard to transition an economy. Fossil fuels do have a high energy density. Fossil fuels can appear cheap at the front end, although only at the front end, because we wouldn't be doing this whole exercise if it weren't that fossil fuels cause massively expensive and harmful externalities that we all pay. We are in a car driving toward a cliff. We're driving toward a cliff. We're not sure where the cliff's edge begins because scientists tell us the tipping points might move the edge closer to us. But they are sure that we are reaching it and will, if we do not stop this car, suffer horrendous and likely irreversible damage. And we can all see our world is starting to go over that cliff. The drivers of the car, all of us, the drivers of the car need to pump the brakes firmly and with commitment. They have no time to worry that they might use too much brake fluid or cause tread damage to the tires or harm a bumper. When your house is burning, you do not call the fire department to schedule an appointment in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. The second new climate denial is to emphasize the costs of the transition off fossil fuels, how much it will cost us, how difficult it will be, taking attention away from the fact that the transition must be done urgently and will actually save us gazillions of dollars in harms and costs. Indeed, the word transition is now too soft a word for the rapid changes we need because we together failed to act earlier. We need to hit the brakes hard, starting now. Now, the third type of new climate denial arises within my own environmental community for perfectly good reasons, but reasons that need to change. It is the denial of the need for some kinds of technological geoengineering to pull greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere and probably out of the oceans. Environmentalists typically oppose this type of approach for two reasons. First, the precautionary principle that massive engineering almost always produces unintended consequences and often quite harmful ones. And second, a well-founded concern that advocacy for technological solutions can be a pretext by fossil fuel leaders to continue their emissions and defer action into the far future. Nonetheless, we have waited too long and likely cannot solve climate change merely by turning off the tap of fossil fuels. Indeed, we must turn off the tap of fossil fuels. You don't start to mop up the floor while the bathtub is still overflowing. But we will also have to do some mopping. Even when we move off fossil fuels entirely, we will need to find ways to geoengineer to avoid the worst harms to the planet and to our societies and ourselves. Opposition to geoengineering is the third type of new climate denial, and we will need to overcome it. The fourth new climate denial is to rely on offsets. The argument goes, we will simply keep pumping out greenhouse gases through the burning of fossil fuels, and we'll plant trees and take other corrective actions to offset the emissions. We'll burn biomass from tree farms in a supposedly virtuous cycle of net zero emissions. It's not going to work. In a world in which we are going to overshoot our carbon budget, and will need geoengineering to pull carbon out of the atmosphere and oceans. It makes no sense to pull it out and then put it up again. It makes no sense to burn it, putting it back up in the skies and into the oceans. We're trying to pull it out and reduce it. Offsets are too complicated, too rife with potential for corruption, poor execution, misaccounting, and injustice. The fourth type of new climate denial, accepting the reality of climate change, yet failing to accept the need to cease emitting greenhouse gases, to believe we can keep using fossil fuels indefinitely and solve the climate change emergency through a too clever, too complicated, too complex scheme of global accounting. I have spoken from my heart about things I deeply care about. And despite my concerns, I have great hopes that we will succeed together. We will build floating cities. We will protect island nations and the ocean's great constellations of wildlife. We will create new clean energy economies in which humankind can thrive. We will tap into human resilience and creativity. We may not agree on everything, but we can and must work together. I hope my ideas, offered with humility, may have moved you and may shape your thinking about the need for boldness, speed, courage, and justice. I'm grateful again for the invitation to talk to you today. I look forward to discussions with you and meals together and getting to know each other better. Thank you again to our hosts and distinguished leaders. And finally, I thank my very fashionable Korean colleagues for teaching me to wear white sneakers to give a keynote address. 감사합니다.
감사합니다. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, General or Executive Director Alex Robinson, for the wonderful, wonderful keynote speech. Actually, I should have worn white sneakers myself, but very good tip. 감사합니다. 우리 대주제.
So thank you very much. He really set the stage for the World Ocean Forum with the thought-provoking presentation. I would like to briefly introduce to you the Alex Robinson. So he's the executive director of the Pacific Environment, and also so the Pacific Environment is working with the IMO for the shipping, and I believe that he has a great sense of fashion. And also he has worked in the Sierra Club for about 20 years. He has also provided the legal advices to various environmental organizations. He graduated from the Harvard University of the US and also got his PhD in the Stanford University. His presentation was really thought-provoking. It really shed a new light on us. Now, before we are going to begin the opening ceremony for the World Ocean Forum, I would like to briefly go over the schedule. So we will have the opening ceremony, which will be followed by the track 1 and track 2. And for this, we will have the discussions on the Oceans and World Expo, and also the climate crisis and the floating city. And also tomorrow, we will have the sessions on the shipping, fisheries, the humanities, as well as the marine index, marine policies, and so on. So we have the several tracks with the 11 sessions. So great program is really in store for us. And also for this year's forum, we will have the decarbonization and digital transition. These will be the two major themes for this year's World Ocean Forum. And in particular, we put together the shipping and the shipbuilding into a single track of the decarbonization. And it's going to be live broadcast to the YouTube channel as well, not just the on-site conference. And for those who missed the pre-registration, 1 week after the World Ocean Forum, it's going to all sessions will be disclosed in public, so please stay tuned. And also for the fishery session, we are going to talk about the mega FTA, as well as disruptions and changes in the global supply chain, as well as challenges and opportunities for Korean fishery industry. And during the cruise session, we are going to talk about how to promote the synergistic growth for Korea and also for the entire world. In fact, the cruise industry is one of the industries that were hit hard by the COVID-19. And we also have the collaborative session, Kiosk Special. And following the last year, this year again, we will have the special session. And this will be about the beyond space to the deep sea. So it's going to deal with the exploratory science. And also centering around the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, we have a marine policy session. And under the title of the Global Marine Governance Report, we will have the Marine Index session. And so it's going to be and this is actually the session that has been organized for the first time this year. And so in order for Busan to become the global marine city, we are going to delve into these indices that we are going to develop. And also for humanities, we are going to have the session on fishing village, adding ocean to the humanities. And also we have a marine design session. And so it's about the trends and future of small and medium-sized ship design, and it will talk about some new perspectives on the marine design. And then at the end of all these sessions, we will have the epilogue session, which is about the ocean as uniters pursuing global cooperation for the good of the planet. So as you can see, we have great programs in store for you. And also this tonight, we have a Korea Marine Honors Network Night and also many side events. So please do participate. As I said earlier, for the opening ceremony, we will have the 2 tracks. So the first track is about the climate change and World Expo. And track 2 is about the climate crisis and floating city. And before we begin, I would like to make some housekeeping announcement that if you do have any question, then please leave the questions.
And then take some questions from our audience. Would that be all right? 괜찮으시다면 기조 연설과 관련한 질의응답을
So if you don't mind, we would like to have the Q&A session regarding the keynote presentation. I believe that you must have had a lot of questions listening to his keynote lecture. Maybe not just the question on the white sneaker. I'm sure that you have some other questions as well, so please do not hesitate.
네, 손 들고 질문을 해주시면 우리 연사분께 Q&A를 하도록 하겠습니다. 한 2분 정도 받아볼 시간이 있을 것 같은데요. 손을 번쩍 들어주시기 바랍니다. We'll be taking the questions from our floor. If you have any questions to our keynote speaker, could you please raise your hand? In fact, other than the white sneakers, what was your impression about Korea and Busan in particular? It's like an ocean capital of Korea.
I flew in 2 nights ago and did not expect it to be as hilly and beautiful.
Oh.
And I knew it was a port city and would have lovely beaches and coastal areas, but I am also really impressed with the mountains as well.
Yeah.
And I am enjoying all of the different cafes, coffee bars, eateries, and plastic surgery centers.
Oh my, plastic surgery centers. Well, actually, Busan is known for its medical tourism as well, so
Yes.
it must be actually a fashionable city as well, as you got this tip from them. Also, to our World Ocean Forum marking its 16th anniversary, could you have any kind of tips or advice for this forum to go forward?
Well, I have been extremely impressed with the World Ocean Forum and its plan for growth and plan for expansion and becoming even more of an international conference. At every step of the way here, I've been impressed with the leadership and the connections and the engagement. So my own thoughts are keep doing what you're doing, and we are very excited at Pacific Environment to participate.
Very good, thank you. We thank you so much for that. Well, and then also to Busan to win the bid for the 2030 World Expo. Actually, that's one of the biggest agenda that will be covered during this forum as well. If you have any tips, because you're from a big city of California, and then.
Well, you have my vote, that's for sure.
Wow.
Thank you. I don't know if I have any special tips for you, but I think it's a wonderful vision, both the floating city and the Expo 2030, because Busan is already known as one of the most important ports in the world, and seeking to raise the profile, and I hope to do it in a way that really will focus on green decarbonization, and other forms of it will be extremely impressive.
We thank you so much for taking your time here. Thank you so much. 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
Please give our keynote speaker a big round of applause. Mr. Alex Robinson, thank you very much for your insightful answers to my questions. And thank you for your support for the successful invitation of Expo 2030 to Busan. Thank you.
자, 지금부터 본격적인 세계
Following that, we will now begin the opening ceremony of the World Ocean Forum in full swing. Before we move on to the track 1 and track 2 discussions on World Expo and Floating City. So following the keynote presentation, we would like to first watch the video.
Ocean as Uniters,
예.
global cooperation for the good of the planet. 초해양 시대 협력과 공존 찾아서라는 대주제를 관통하는.
So that was the video that showed the grand theme of this World Ocean Forum. And Korea in this era of the new ocean, the video showed the vision for Korea to move forward. And I hope that the WOF will continue to make a contribution toward this path. The World Ocean Forum, until last year, we had a online forum, but this time we have had the hybrid forum with a lot of participants on site today. I would like to thank you all for your attendance. In particular, we are honored to have Minister Cho Seung-hwan of the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries and Park Hyung-jun, Mayor of the Busan Metropolitan City. Next, we would like to invite the Kim Jin-soo, CEO of the Busan Daily Newspaper, to the stage for his opening remarks. So please welcome him with a big hand. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Busan is aiming to host the 2030 World Expo. It's a leading marine city, and so it is indeed a great honor for me to host this World Ocean Forum, bringing together experts in the marine and shipping sectors, as well as all the government officers who have honored us with their presence. World Ocean Forum is Korea's largest academic conference on ocean and marine issues. Before we have this opening ceremony, we had the keynote lecture by Alexander Levinson, CEO of the Pacific Environment. I would like to express my gratitude to him. As we have heard from his speech, we are really facing the climate crisis in a real way. But I believe that we will be able to overcome this great crisis if we are united. I'd like to also thank all the government officials, ambassadors, consuls of various nations, members of international organizations and NGOs. Thank you very much for joining us despite your busy schedule. My special thanks in particular goes to our strong supporters, Cho Seung-hwan, Minister of the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, as well as the Mayor Park Hyung-jun of the Busan Metropolitan Government for sparing no support for the successful hosting of this forum this year. And also, let me also thank in advance the Ambassador Matthias Franke of the Chile Embassy and Itai Matamumbe, the co-founder at Oceanix, as well as all the speakers from Korea and abroad for their contribution during the following keynote session. I'd like to also thank the Kim Hyun-kyum, chair of the organizing committee of the World Ocean Forum, as well as the 24 members of the planning committee. Thank you very much for your all efforts to put together this conference. The title of this year's forum is Ocean as Uniters Pursuing Global Cooperation for the Good of the Planet. COVID-19 has accelerated the pace of the Industrial 4.0, changes in global trade order, supply chain, climate change, food and energy crisis, and none of which can be handled by a single nation or by a single individual. And therefore, we desperately need to join our hands for our coexistence. Marine industry is not an exception, as we have heard from the keynote speech. Without managing climate crisis, we cannot expect economic growth any longer. In this sense, decarbonization and digital transition can provide us with a safe stepping stone toward a green future. This year, we created the 2 new combined sessions on something that start with alphabet D, which are decarbonization and digital transitions, which are the combined session of the shipping, port, and shipbuilding. So through this session, we will use this forum as an opportunity to take stock upon what we are globally and domestically regarding these 2D areas. And also during the Korea Marine Owners Network night tonight, we will have a very special ceremony as well as a lecture by the Chairman Lee Soo-tae of Panacea. So he is now building the smart factory in order to realize his vision of the digital transition and decarbonization. Some say that we are now living in an era of space, and Korea has also opened a new chapter of space. But in the ocean, what's equivalent to space is deep sea, and technologies used in the space and deep sea are pretty similar. So in this sense, we have organized a kiosk special session where top-notch marine scientists will give us special thought-provoking lectures to open up the era of space in the marine sector. And also in this year's W Ocean Forum, a very special session has been prepared. In order to set the direction for future, we organized the World Ocean Forum Index session for the first time. And also, we have brought together 90 speakers from 11 countries online and offline this year. And for the next 3 days, these renowned speakers will give us innovative proposals and engage in in-depth discussion in 11 sessions. So this year is already the 16th year since the beginning of the World Ocean Forum. And there are many opinion leaders who have made valuable contribution to the development of the World Ocean Forum, including the Consul of the Marine Sector, Mr. Kang Ul-gu, and also the Chairman Choi Yang Jae-sik, who received a Korea Marine Honor Award before, as well as all the government officers of the marine and shipbuilding related government organizations. Thanks to your support, we have been able to have held the World Ocean Forums for a long time with great success. The Busan Daily newspaper is dedicated to elevating and making this World Ocean Forum the global top-notch forum. So for that, we will continue to cooperate with the city of Busan. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, President Kim of Busan Daily, for your opening remarks. Thank you very much. Now I would like to read President Yoon Suk-yeol of the Republic of Korea's congratulatory remarks. He could not make it to this forum, but let me read it for you. Congratulations on the opening of the 16th World Ocean Forum. I would like to thank the officials of the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, Busan Metropolitan City, and the Busan Daily for organizing such a meaningful event. The World Ocean Forum, which is called the diverse forum in the maritime field, has established itself as a place to explore the changing future of the ocean and find solutions as well as ways to explore it. The World Ocean Forum, which celebrates its 16th anniversary this year, is all the more significant as Busan citizens and local media are playing a pivotal role in this forum this year. The Republic of Korea will fulfill its responsibilities and role as a responsible member of the international community. We are helping the growth of developing countries by increasing the ODA budget for maritime and fisheries while discovering the new growth engines in the sea by fostering new marine industries. We are also actively promoting the development and the deployment of eco-friendly ships and the creation of hydrogen-powered ports for the net zero transformation of the entire marine and fishery industry. In addition, various measures are being taken to dramatically reduce the amount of marine debris. And in September, the International Marine Debris Conference was successfully held here in Busan in conjunction with the United Nations Environment Program. It is expected that through this forum, we will examine the current issues facing our marine and fishery economy and the marine and fishery industry and come up with various solutions and suggestions and recommendations for sustainable marine and fishery sector. Once again, congratulations on the opening of the 16th World Ocean Forum, and I wish every one of you good luck and success. Thank you. October 25th, 2022, Yoon Suk-yeol, the President of the Republic of Korea, please give a warm round of applause to the message of the President. I also hope that we can see various solutions and recommendations for sustainable marine and fisheries sector. We also have the congratulatory message from the Assemblyman Jae-won-chang. Congratulations on the opening of the 16th World Ocean Forum. I believe that this is a venue for the discussion for the development of maritime and fisheries industry. I'd like to thank all the members as well as the organizing committee for this forum. In order for Korea to lead the world in the fisheries and maritime industry, I would like to ask for your continued support and dedication. I wish every good luck and success to you all. Thank you very much. October 25th, 2022, Assemblyman Jae-won-chang. Thank you very much. And Byung-soo Seo, a member of the organizing committee and the steering committee for World Expo 2030, shared his congratulatory remarks. I'd like to thank him for his message as well. Well, this World Ocean Forum started back in 2007, so this year marks the 16th anniversary. We have a very strong and widespread global cooperation network, and we also have congratulatory remarks from around the world. Let's take a look.
Greetings to everyone present, and thank you for the opportunity of addressing you today. I applaud the World Ocean Forum's choice of this year's theme, positioning the ocean as a uniter in the pursuit of global cooperation for the good of the planet.
Hello and greetings to everyone.
여러분 안녕하십니까? 네, 올해 개최되는 세계해양 포럼에 참석하신 여러분께 인사를 전합니다. 전 현재 영국에 있는데요. 올해 세계해양 포럼에서 논의할 주제는 더할 수 없이 중요합니다. 전 세계적으로 환경 보호를 위해서든 기술 변혁을 통한 기후 변화 해결을 위해서든 무역의 자유로운 흐름을 위해서든
Whether it's on tackling climate change with technological transformation or ensuring the free flowing of trade, the whole concept of working together across the globe on maritime and ocean policy is enormously valuable. And at Busan this year, I hope you're going to have a series of discussions that are going to take that cooperation forwards. So my good wishes to all of you for a very successful conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me greet on behalf of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, the home of ocean sciences in the United Nations system, the 2022 edition of the World Ocean Forum. As a participant of the previous very successful forum in Busan, I would like to welcome you all and to wish success for the forum, because I think it's the topic that ocean is a uniting force, working for peace, working for cooperation, is very important in the current context, and also is very promising. So thank you for what you do, and I wish success to the forum that is focusing on the ocean as a uniter. Kamsahamnida.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to congratulate you on holding this forum under the theme, Oceans as Uniters, Pursuing Global Cooperation for the Good of the Planet. The theme is very pertinent to the work of IMO as the United Nations agency with responsibility for ensuring that shipping is sustainable, clean, and safe, and that oceans are protected.
네, 고맙습니다. Thank you so much for the wonderful, warm, congratulatory messages. IMO 임기택 사무총장님.
So, IMO Secretary General Im Gyu-taek, as well as the Vladimir and Peter Thompson and Chris Grayling, the member of the House of Commons of the UK, sent us the pre-recorded video to congratulate the opening of this forum. And I think that this truly indicates the global scale of this forum. And as you could see, I believe that we'll be able to have a lot of insights from this forum. Now we are going to begin the first track discussion on the climate change and World Expo. And we have a special discussion where the mayor of the Busan city, as well as the Cho Sung-hwan, Minister of the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, will take part in. One of the most important agenda for Busan in its future. What's high on the Busan's agenda? You know, the Busan is a marine capital, and so it has a shipping industry, fisheries, and marine industries. But so a lot of things can come to your mind. But right now, what's high on Busan's agenda is the 2030 World Expo. So together with the Olympic Games, this is one of the world's 3 major events. So we really have to muster our strengths together to win the bid to host the 2030 World Expo. And this will give a huge opportunity for Busan to take a quantum leap. That's why for the first track, we have organized the discussion session on the climate change and World Expo. And also in this year's World Ocean Forum, as we are now living in an era of the new ocean, so we have had the keynote presentation by Alex Levinson, and then we will have the discussions on this track 1 and track 2. So the track 1 will focus on World Expo and climate change, and track 2 is about the climate crisis and floating city. And for the first track session, the Cho Sung-hwan, Minister of the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, Park Hyung-jun, Mayor of the Busan Metropolitan City, and also the Matthias Franke, the Chilean ambassador, will join us as the discussant. So we would like to invite the discussants to the stage. So the Cho Sung-hwan, Minister, and Mayor Park Hyung-jun, as well as the Matthias Franke, Chilean ambassador, and also the moderator, would like to invite them all to the stage now.
For speakers and panelists of our track 1, Uniters Ocean and Expo. It's going to be a round table with the theme Ocean and Expo. Minister Cho Sung-hwan of Oceans and Fisheries, Mayor Park Hyung-jun of Busan Metropolitan City, Ambassador of Chile to Republic of Korea, Matthias Franke, and the moderator, Mr. Kim Hyung-young, the head of the Executive Committee of World Ocean Forum. 네, 고맙습니다. 자, 그럼 우리 사회를 맡은 좌장님께 마이크를 넘기도록 하겠습니다.
So now I'd like to turn over the microphone to the moderator of this track 1.
Good afternoon. I'm very honored and privileged to moderate this special talk with the distinguished guests here. My name is Hyun-Gyun Kim. I'm the chair of the planning committee for the World Ocean Forum. Very nice to meet you all. The World Ocean Forum features this special talk for the first time in its history. And in this session, we will discuss the era of hyper-ocean and how to link that to World Expo 2030 we want to have in Busan. And the three distinguished guests here are the ones who can address questions related to the agenda for Busan, which is World Expo 2030. So I would like to invite the panelists. First, Minister Jo Seung-hwan of Oceans and Fisheries. Minister Jo is born in Busan. He passed the government officials examination in 1991. He served as the head of marine policy, and he also served as the president of KIMS, and he was inaugurated as the Minister of Oceans and Fisheries. Well, he is a classical technocrat. Next, I'd like to turn to Mayor Park Hyung-jun of Busan Metropolitan City Government. Mayor Park served as the National Assembly member, and he also served as a special advisor to the president, and he also served as the Secretary General at the National Assembly, and he also served as the mayor of Busan Metropolitan City Government as the 38th Metropolitan City Government mayor, and he is also serving as the 39th Busan Metropolitan City mayor, and we are also joined by His Excellency Ambassador of Chile to Korea. Now, I'd like to start with Minister Jo for the special talk. Well, the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries is in charge of the candidate site for Busan World Expo 2030, and Mayor Park is the head of the Busan Metropolitan City, which is the candidate city for 2030. And Mr. Ambassador is known for his love for Korea, especially Busan. As you know all too well, Chile has the longest coastal line in the world and is a maritime superpower in Latin America. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. My introduction of our three panelists was too short, and as you know, Mr. Jo and Mayor Park are the co-organizing chairs for the World Ocean Forum. And President Kim of Busan Daily mentioned in his opening remarks that this year marks the 16th anniversary of a World Ocean Forum, and even during the pandemic, this World Ocean Forum has continued. And I believe you must be filled with a great emotion as we have this offline forum for the first time in 3 years. So would you please share your welcoming remarks with those who are joining us online and offline? First, Mr. Jo, please. Very nice to meet you all. I am Jo Seung-hwan, Minister of Oceans and Fisheries. Congratulations on the 16th anniversary of the World Ocean Forum. And as I see all of you in person in this hall, well, actually, I was one of the members in the planning committee of the World Ocean Forum when this forum was inaugurated 16 years ago. And this forum has grown to become a Korean version of Davos Forum in the maritime field. So I'm so thrilled and excited to see its development. And I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the efforts and dedication of all those who have made this forum possible, especially President Shin-Soo Kim of Busan Daily and Chairman Kim Hyun-gyam, as well as Mayor Park, for their hard work and dedication. And there are so many people who have not spared any support for the World Ocean Forum. I'd like to thank you all. And this forum will be a venue for us to look for some insight for oceans to serve as a channel for the future. Thank you.
Next to Mayor Park. Thank you very much. So the city of Busan we are very proud of this World Ocean Forum, the global leading forum in the marine sector, and I'm very pleased to see the opening of this forum. Because of the COVID pandemic, for a few years, we were not able to have a sort of the proper forum. But this year, we now see large turnout and on-site. So I hope that the World Ocean Forum will continue to grow and evolve so that it could be a big grand gathering that bring together all the experts of the marine sector in Korea as well as outside Korea. I'd like to thank the Kim Jin-soo, CEO of the Busan Daily Newspaper, as well as all the members of the planning committee. Thank you very much. And also today we are very honored to have the Cho Sung-han, Minister of the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries. As you know, the Busan, if you look at the city on the map, it's actually a gateway city to the Eurasian continent. And also the Busan is the world's second largest transshipment port, and it's a city that lives on the marine industry. And as a marine capital, Busan is a really open city as well. For the future of humanity, I believe that the marine sector plays a crucial role, and Busan City has embarked on various new experimentations to come up with the innovative solutions for marine environment. In particular, in track 2, we will be talking about the floating island, which is a pursuit as a part of the UN Habitat project, and we were selected to host this floating settlement. And also in our bid to the host World Expo, Busan is striving to renew itself as a new environment-friendly leading marine city. Once again, I would like to thank you all for your efforts to put together this World Ocean Forum, and also I would like to thank all the visitors from traveling all the distance to Busan. And also I'm very pleased to have this kind of opportunity to talk about the future of Busan and future of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Now we are joined by Mr. Martias Franke, the Honorary Ambassador of Chile to ROK. Would you please make a brief introduction to Chile and as well as sharing your welcoming message?
Mr. Cho, Mayor Park, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. It's an honor. It's always nice to come to Busan. I've been an ambassador here in Korea for only 4 months, but I've been already twice in Busan. So it's always nice to be more close. Okay. So it's always nice to be out of Seoul, a hectic city, to come here to Busan and enjoy the beaches and the port and the city and the people, of course. Thank you much for inviting me as representative of Chile, a country who shares with Korea values, but also we share an ocean, a big ocean. We are in the other corner of the ocean. But we also share the importance of conservation of our marine resources, the conservation of our waters, the conservation of our land. We have a foreign policy in Chile that we call it a turquoise foreign policy. It's based on the protection of the earth, the land, the biodiversity. That's the green part of the turquoise. And the blue is the protection of the ocean. So the mix of green and blue makes it turquoise. So that's a very important pillar of our foreign policy. So very much here to share our experience and to talk also to you and discuss ways how we move forward in this very important agenda. 감사합니다.
아주 좋은 말씀 감사합니다. 자, 그럼 지금부터
Thank you very much. Now we are going to have the discussion on the Marine and World Expo. Since the Minister Cho was the first to deliver the speech, I would like to ask the question to Mayor Park first. The Busan시 and the Korean government delegation visited Paris, France on the 7th of September to formally submit the bid to host the World Expo in 2030. So have your strategy become different before and after the official submission? So do you really think that the real competition has already started? Before talking about strategy and competition, I would like to briefly explain you about the changes in the nature of the World Expo. As you know, in the past, the World Expo was for the presentation of new technologies and innovative products. However, nowadays, the Expo is not just about the platform to showcase new products and new technologies. Rather, it's a platform that shows the vision as well as the values that humanity should cherish for its future. And also in this process, countries around the world are gathered together. And it also shows what kind of cooperation will be required for the whole global community to move toward. So I think that the latter part is more important nowadays on the World Expo. In other words, it's not just about the display of the new products and new technologies. It's the display of value and civilization. And in the sense, in this era of making a huge transition in the human civilization, I believe Busan is really the right candidate to host the 2030 World Expo. So we have 3 themes for the 2030 World Expo. The number 1 is about the climate change that the whole world is facing. So how to cope with this crisis. That's the number 1 theme. And number 2 is in responding to climate change, we have to utilize new technologies. And also in this era of digital transition, technology is truly a key that determines the future of humanities. But the problem is that for whom should the technologies be used and how and in what ways? So the second theme that we submitted is the human aspect of the technology. In other words, technology should be used for the sake of the vulnerable, and also it should be used to reduce the digital divide within the society as well as between the nations. And also the technology should be tapped in to address the issues of the global community, for example, like climate change, food crisis. So we have to make use of technologies for these noble causes. So this is the theme 2 for our plan. And the third theme is that we have a lot of challenges to tackle, but as you know, one of the most important challenges is to overcoming the disparity and also becoming an inclusive society that leaves no one behind. So in that sense, the inclusiveness is another very important topic that we stressed in our bid to host the World Expo. And in particular, we emphasize the principle, spirit of the caring and sharing. And I believe that the Busan is really the right city that shows the values of these 3 themes. Why? Because Busan, after the Korean War, the Korea's per capita GDP was the $67, but it increased to $35,000. And Busan played a pivotal role for Korea's remarkable economic strides. And also, Busan is a city that epitomized the development of the democracy in Korea. It's also the city where the continent and the sea meet. And also during the Korean War, more than 1 million refugees from the Korean War came to Busan and settled there, created their own community. So in the sense, Busan is actually a very tolerant and inclusive society that embraces everyone and welcomes everyone. And in the sense, Busan is truly in the right position to host the World Expo in 2030. And so all of these are included in our plan. And this is also the strategy that we are going to use. And also Busan is the world's second largest transshipment port. We are now building the smart port, and also we have established and started the various projects to establish the infrastructures that are connected to the port. So I believe that all of these could be an experimentation for us to explore new options to overcome the climate crisis. That's why we emphasized that the Busan is the right city to host the World Expo. And thank you.
예, 시장님 감사합니다.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, he elaborated on the broader and more comprehensive concept of the rationale for Busan to have World Expo 2030, especially the caring and sharing. I believe, well, that epitomizes the spirit of Busan. Busan is a city of prosperity, but it also stresses the sharing and caring all at the same time. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to turn to Mr. Zhou for his remarks. I think what is really important is to secure the site or the space for World Expo 2030. I think we need to have a massive space for the expo. So how will we secure the space and how to utilize the space? And I'd like to also ask for the status of Northport redevelopment project phase 1. As for the redevelopment project phase 1 and 2, for the Northport, but that is a very important national policy project for the current administration. And that is a very important national task for the current administration. On May 31st, we celebrated the Day of Ocean, and I showed the site of the redevelopment to the President of the Republic of Korea, and I reported the status of the redevelopment to him. In order to expedite this process, the infrastructure will be completed for phase 1 will be completed by the end of this year. And as for the hinterland road network, an underground passage will be completed by 2024. And as for tram, that will be completed by 2027. And for cultural facilities, such as marina, that will be completed. The construction will be completed by 2030. And as for phase 2, the preliminary feasibility study is almost coming to an end. And I believe we will soon have the preliminary feasibility study result. And once that is completed, we will be able to, based on that, pursue massive scale projects. And as for the administrative procedure, which is in general about 38 months, but we will shorten the time period to 20 months so that we can complete the site preparation by 2027. That is the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. So if the mayor succeeded in hosting the 2030 Expo, I think Busan is really ready to host that in terms of infrastructure. So far we have had the questions to the mayor as well as the minister, and we have a lot of online participants. And there is a question that how to link the Busan Northport project with the World Expo, and that was very helpful. Now I'd like to ask a question to the Ambassador Matthias Franke. Chile is the world's marine superpower that represents Latin America, especially Valparaiso, in the vicinity of San Diego, has a lot of commonalities with Busan. And after the signing of the two countries' free trade agreements, the trade volume of the two ports have grown significantly. So in this sense, what's your view on Busan's efforts to host World Expo? That's my first question. And second question, in order to earn the support from Latin American countries, what kind of efforts should the Korean government as well as the Busan city exert? I would like to hear your advice for that.
Thank you very much. Difficult question, but let me a couple of points. First of all, you mentioned Valparaiso. Yes, Valparaiso is a main port in Chile, and it's a sister city with Busan since 1999, so more than 20 years. So they have been working in projects together, and one of my duties, and I spoke this with the Vice Mayor when I was here in Busan in August, and also with parliamentarians in Chile. Our Congress is in Valparaiso, actually. The capital is Santiago, but the Congress is in Valparaiso. So when I spoke with parliamentarians, particularly the ones on the friendship group between Korea and Chile, the parliamentarians, we also discuss how to invigorate the cooperation between Busan and Valparaiso. Busan, it's important. 85% of our trade, our exports comes into Busan, so that gives a lot of business for customs agency, transportation, storage, and we're talking about more than $4 billion per year from Chilean exports coming into Busan. Busan is also head of KIOS, KIMF, and other organizations that we are working very closely. We are cooperating particularly with KIMF, but also with KIOS. We are hoping to have Chilean officers from the Chilean Navy studying in KIOS starting next year, and also having Korean officers studying navigation in Antarctic waters in Chile. So that's a very, very important that kind of cooperation. Busan, also it's a very city attractive from the point of view of creative industries. I mean, not only the Busan film industry, the film festival, sorry, I'm meeting with them tomorrow, but also other creative industries. And we are trying to develop also creative industry. One of the issues, the things that we're doing in Korea and Chile is also promote our cultural exchanges. So that's very, very important. On Expo Busan bid, our view from the embassy, of course, we are very positive for the reason that I mentioned. This was discussed 2 weeks ago by Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, who met with President of Chile, Boric, and they discussed the issues, the themes. We very much share some of them, particularly the inclusive society. This is something also that I discussed with President Yoon when I presented my credentials in July, and we discussed about the importance of having people centered in all our policies and everything what we do as governments. People has to be in the center. So inclusive development, inclusive trade, it's an important element. Also the global challenges and how Busan and how Korea are facing those global challenges and how we can learn from that and how can Korea also learn from the rest of the world. We haven't taken our decision yet. Sorry, Mayor. I would have loved to come with the decision here. But again, we have the President and Prime Minister had a very good conversation. And my President, I understand informally that he was really excited about Expo Busan. So count with my personal also support and vote. But I'm going to do as best as much as possible back in Santiago so we get an early decision from Chile.
지금 이제
Mayor Park will specifically ask for the invitation of the ambassador. I think since this is an opportunity to strongly insist that Busan is the city for Expo 2030 to the Chilean government. And I believe that through 2030 Expo, we will be able to realize the values pursued by Busan. And I hope that this represents a great opportunity for the further exchange between our two nations. Thank you, Ambassador. Well, I think in everyone's mind is Busan's competition against Riyadh of Saudi Arabia for World Expo 2030, and my understanding is that we have quite an equal vote. And how can we win in this bid to have the successful candidacy for World Expo 2030? So I would like to ask for the clear-cut and straightforward answer from the mayor. Which country is doing better and which country is supporting which nation? Well, there have been a lot of news media. Well, some news media says that Korea is at disadvantage. I think, well, for now, it is really not significant at all because one country's position can be changed anytime for any reason. As the ambassador mentioned, Prime Minister Han met with the President of Chile and discussed in depth the ways for the two nations to cooperate further. So through such an in-depth discussion, many countries would see that cooperation with Korea will be in their interest from a longer-term perspective. I think, well, that will be an opportunity for us to convince those nations. I paid a visit to 5 nations in Latin America, and through that I came to see that whether it's World Cup or Olympic Games, well, IOC members and the FIFA members are critical in the final decision. But as for Expo, World Expo, it is quite critical to persuade the leader of that nation to joining you. So I think the decision hinges on what kind of support we can offer and what kind of collaboration we can do down the road. So this is a venue for us to have a very detailed discussion as to the future collaboration. If we do our best in obtaining and in inviting World Expo 2030, we will be exploring various ways for creative cooperation with many nations around the globe. So this will be a critical opportunity for Korea to grow its national competence. So this is not just about World Expo 2030, but this is an opportunity, genuine opportunity for Korea to further its collaboration and cooperation with nations around the globe. And as the center, marine center of Korea, Busan will enjoy a vast opportunity to network with cities around the world and to work with countries around the world. And I believe that's what we can get through this candidacy for World Expo 2030. Korea is so multifaceted country. Korea has all the elements we need to have, and in each area we have world-class competitiveness, ranging from ICT technology all the way to green technology and K-pop. And Korea has every element it needs to have to invite World Expo 2030, and in each area we have potential partners. Korea is such an attractive nation, and Korean culture is quite familiar to anyone thanks to the K-pop, and young people around the world want to know more about Korea and the Korean culture. If we redouble our efforts, if we come closer to them, then we will be able to identify areas for close cooperation. And after this candidacy, Korea will be able to enjoy very strong and robust partnership with 170 nations across the globe. And we will be able to create a new collaborative framework down the road. That's the perspective we have for running for World Expo 2030. And I believe the process of this candidacy itself will be in the interest of not just Korea, but also all the nations throughout the globe. Thank you.
감사합니다. 저희들도 지금
Thank you, Mayor. What we feel now is that our goal is not just to host the World Expo, rather together with the 170 countries. I believe that our real goal is to create a strong connection with the 170 countries around the world. So in this sense, I think Mayor Park really made a valuable contribution, and I really thank him for that. World Expo, as you know, there is a central government agency that has main responsibility, which are the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries. And the site, the candidate site for the World Expo is under the supervision of the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries. And also the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, it played a crucial role for Yeosu's successful bidding of the Yeosu Expo. And in that sense, previously, so that's why the ministry shows a strong passion and support for Busan. And in particular, the minister, as a special presidential ambassador, last July visited the countries in the South Pacific in order to promote the expo. And in this sense, what kind of roles can the ministry play further for the successful bidding of the World Expo for Busan? Can you also share with us your visit to the South Pacific nations? Yes, so Busan is the Korea's largest #1 marine city. So the development of Busan equals the development of marine sector in Korea, as well as the development of Korea as a ocean powerhouse. And that's why we have provided strong support for Busan to succeed in its bidding. And also the main government agencies for this project is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries. In particular, the reason that our ministry has special interest in this is because the Busan port, it has a long history, and it has risen from the ashes of the Korean War. and it has made a remarkable development. And so it has really fulfilled its duties as a port. And now the Busan port. However, it also caused a lot of inconveniences to citizens. So now what we are working on is to eliminate these inconveniences to return the Busan port back to the citizens. And in that sense, I believe that the Busan port really shows the entire history that a port should go through. And as you mentioned, for the hosting of the Yeosu Expo, yes, we had a great experience and we have all the expertise. And we also witnessed with our own eyes how Yeosu has been transformed since the hosting of the Yeosu Expo. And in that sense, for the sake of the Busan development and also the development of Korea, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries will continue to their best. And we'll work with the Ministry of Trade as well. And because we are the government agency that deals with the marine issues, and therefore everyone in our ministry, we all believe that we are the special ambassadors to promote Busan as the host city for World Expo. So whenever the opportunity is available, we try to take the best advantage of them to promote Busan. So I visited the South Pacific nations, including Fiji, as a special presidential ambassador, and I visited a lot of heads of state who participate there for the BIE meeting. And while having discussions with the countries in the South Pacific, I realized that the Busan experience can be a great assistance for them for their development. And I believe that this could be sort of the big selling point, that with the hosting of the World Expo, Busan can transfer its development experiences and know-hows to these countries. And also we have a common factor that all of us to have the oceans. And so they were highly interested in the climate change and how the marine environment affects the climate change. And unlike other World Cups or the Olympic Games, so unlike the sports events, World Expo is decided by the government, and also it's critically related with the future of a nation. And therefore, even the underdeveloped nations, they are not really swayed by the one-off proposal for a certain business. Rather, they're caring more about how to build a better future for their future generations to prosper. And in the sense, they are eager to learn from Korea's experience. So in the sense, I believe that the Busan is not really lagging behind the Riyadh of the Saudi Arabia. And also, through the process, some countries, I cannot mention the specific names of the nations, but there are some nations who already made it clear that they're going to officially support Busan. So that's a big achievement that we have made so far.
Thank you, Minister. I believe the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries has the strongest network overseas among all the ministries in Korea. And as you mentioned, we can make the most of Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries network for the successful candidacy of Busan for World Expo 2030. Thank you very much. Then I'd like to ask the ambassador. Well, Busan is actively engaged in promoting Busan Expo, World Expo 2030 in Busan. Then the ambassador. I think you have gone through all the materials for the successful bid. Do you think you can compare the two candidate cities, Busan and Riyadh, for their probability of winning the bid? Because we will see the final outcome only in a year's time. So is there any advice you can give us? Well, which area of Busan we should highlight for the successful candidacy? I'd like to ask for your advice, Ambassador. I'm sorry, that's such a difficult question.
it's a very difficult question because I have no idea about Saudi Arabia, and it's a bit. I also understand that Rome is also a candidate, so there are 3 cities. But let me 2 points. One of them, I think, to assure the audience here, the effort that the government, the Korean government, and the business community and the cultural community, I mean, the BTS concert last week, it's very impressive. I have never seen this in my 30 years of diplomatic life. So I have to commend that, to the government, to the private sector, of course, the city of Busan, traveling around the world as the mayor, the minister, the prime minister, the business community. I've been discussing Expo Busan not only with the government, but also with Kia, with POSCO, with SK. So everybody's involved in that. And I think that's a big asset. That's a very positive asset, that when the whole country, from top leaders down to all the companies are involved in this project, I think that's very important, and you have to take benefit of that. And rest assured that the government, at least from the point of view of this ambassador, humble ambassador, have done the maximum effort to bring this candidacy. Again, these decisions are usually taken with other considerations, but if it's from the point of view of what Korea has been doing, I mean, that's a great effort. So, chapeau for Korea. My second point is the issue of cooperation, and the mayor is right. No, for developing countries like Chile, we have been cooperating with Korea, as I mentioned, on maritime issues, on Antarctic issues, on many issues regarding the sea and the oceans. In APEC, no, when we were hosting APEC in 2019, we were able to adopt 2 big important roadmaps. One roadmap on marine debris, and the other one on illegal, unregulated fisheries. And those are being implemented by members, and they have been supplemented with new roadmaps on small-scale fisheries. So Busan, again, has a very important place in APEC history. No? In 2005, Busan hosted the leaders here in a very nice place here, close to the port. And I guess Busan will also have a very important voice in 2025 when Korea again hosts APEC. So we are doing a lot of things. We are also working in the South Pacific Regional Fisheries Management Organization with Korea. It's a very innovative RFMO, different to others. The precautionary approach and the multi-systemic approach in that RFMO is really, really important. So we are cooperating, but not all countries in the world are cooperating. So the points regarding the mayor about new cooperation, new ways of cooperation with those who are already cooperating with Korea, but also those countries, nations who are starting to cooperate with Korea, I think that will be very important. Not only after Expo Busan, but before and during Expo Busan. How we also, developing countries, can have a voice in Expo Busan, how we can also have a say in Expo Busan, how we can also discuss our issues, developing countries' issue with Korea, with the other 170-something countries who hopefully will be here in Expo Busan in 2030. So those are my comments. I didn't answer your question, but I think I gave some elements there. 감사합니다.
대사님께서 충분히 말씀을 해주신 것 같고.
Thank you very much. I think that really suffices. And so far what we have talked about. So he summarized all the things that we have talked about. So the government effort and also the cooperation with the private sector, as well as the cooperation with various sectors of the society. So what will happen? Because we have a strong support from the ministry and also from mayor, I believe that all of our efforts will be valuable anyway for the better future of Busan. Because of time constraint, we would like to entertain one last question to the minister. So anything that you want to get from mayor? That's my final question to you. So was the mayor part of the Busan Metropolitan Government? We have always on communication, so there's nothing special that I would like to ask for him. But maybe to citizens and also members of the marine sector. I hope that we can continue to have a consistent communication so that Busan Metropolitan City will make a huge success in the hosting of the World Expo and also pursuing the Bukang development project. And Busan World Expo I believe 70% of this event is about marine. So I hope that you really give us a strong support for this. And in the sense, the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, yes, we have a lot of organizations and also people dispatched from the ministry in Busan. But across the nation, we established the task force team that includes the government officers, private sector representatives, and so on, in order to provide a very strong support for Busan to succeed in its bid to host World Expo. And so this is an expo on ocean, let's say, on the topics of the ocean, and therefore the people in the ocean and the fisheries sectors must pay attention and provide strong support. And also the fact that if we could host the World Expo in the city of Busan, then focus will be inevitably on the sea, and sea is actually a major player for us to address the issues of the climate change. So in that sense, I sincerely hope that we all can galvanize a strong momentum for Busan's success. So thank you once again.
I think, well, your comment was after a mayor's heart. So your last message to the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries as well as the Busan citizens. This morning, I met with the foreign ministers of 5 countries from Latin America. I met with them one by one, and I had a group discussion as well. And as I mentioned, we discussed the ways for future cooperation between Korea and those nations, and between Busan and those nations. And the Pacific countries' foreign ministers will come down to Busan today, and I have such high expectations for the role to be played by the minister. And they will stay in Busan till tomorrow. I think this is possible thanks to the unsparing support by the central government for Busan. The foreign minister is making an arrangement for any international conferences to be held in Busan. So we have such a great support and assistance. I believe I'm so lucky that we have such an utmost support from the central government as well as from the cultural community and the businesses. And Busan and all those different sectors and industries as well as the central government are playing as one team. That's quite encouraging. I'm so grateful. I'd like to ask for the continued support from Busan citizens, and I will make my utmost effort for the successful candidacy of World Expo 2030. And through this process, well, the successful bid would be quite important, but I believe through this process of running full World Expo 2030, we will be able to establish Busan as a world-class brand. And I hope that we have a close and friendly relationship with all the cities across the globe. And I hope that World Expo 2030 will set the direction for the human civilization down the road, so that we can further our global cooperation for the good of the planet. Once again, I'd like to ask for your inspiring support. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Minister, and thank you, Ambassador. We had the first special talk on Busan's candidacy for World Expo 2030. We have covered various topics and ideas. I hope we will have Busan Expo 2030. Thank you. Thank you for your active participation. I'd like to thank our 4 gentlemen for their active participation in this special talk. I hope today's special talk will lay a firm foundation for Busan's successful bid for World Expo 2030. So this is the end of track 1. Ocean and Expo 2030. 2030 World Expo will be the Marine Expo. That is the remark which was engraved in my heart. Now we'd like to turn to track 2, climate crisis and floating city. Busan is the marine capital of Korea, and climate crisis and floating city will be quite important topics for Busan. That is why we will hold track 2 under that theme. We have a keynote speaker for track 2, and I would like to invite our keynote speaker as well as the panelist and the moderator onto the stage. In this track, we will have the keynote speech by Ms. Itai Matamembe, co-founder of Oceanics. Now, we will also be joined by Professor Han-seok Lee and Mr. Jung Hyun, as well as Professor Hwa Chol-song for the panel discussion. Please welcome them with a big hand. I'd like to ask all those 4 members for track 2 onto the stage. Ms. Itai Matamembe of Oceanics of the United States. Well, she served as the first global health care advisor to the former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and she was also a diplomat in Zimbabwe. And she co-founded Oceanics, a development company for floating ocean, and her presentation will be on the floating city, the unity to fight against sea level rise.
연설자분을 앞으로 모시겠습니다.
That was not a very big round of applause. Let's try again. Come on, come on, come on.
다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful to be here, distinguished guests, and we will begin with a video of our floating city. Thank you for watching. Our fate as people is inseparable from the fate of the ocean. We need the ocean to sustain our planet. But the ocean is under threat. We are under threat as human beings. And this is the reason why Oceanics, our company, together with UN Habitat and the city of Busan, have offered an innovative solution to deal with climate adaptation and the threats that we are facing. Why would anyone build a city on water, you might be asking? My own mother is asking. And there are many credible reasons, and I will be happy to share some of them with you. Coastal cities around the world have a problem because when they run out of land, they have nowhere to expand. And from UN Habitat, we learned that 3 million people are moving to cities every week, 3 million people every week. And most of these cities are coastal cities. And coastal cities have nowhere to expand so that they can meet this influx of new people, to give them shelter, food, energy, and all of the other things that cities need to provide. So this is a huge challenge. Just take a look at that image. And this challenge is now being compounded by climate change and sea level rise. Truly, coastal cities are at the forefront of climate change and sea level rise. 90% of the largest cities in the world are vulnerable to sea level rise. There's not a day, not quite a day, that's an exaggeration, but a significant period that goes by where we don't hear in the news about flooding somewhere, Florida. We've just gone through that. And this is a serious challenge. Billions worth of infrastructure around the world is being destroyed due to flooding because of sea level rise. But most importantly, human beings are being displaced because of this issue. And sea level rise is creating climate refugees around the world. And the issue of people living and being displaced from their homes is beyond just finding new shelter. They leave behind their networks, they leave behind their culture, they leave behind their livelihoods and the graves of their ancestors and everything that they have known. And often they are going to hostile places that don't necessarily welcome them. When coastal cities run out of land, often they resort to land reclamation to create new land. And this is extremely damaging to the ocean. Land reclamation really is a polite way of saying you create new land by dumping debris and sand into the ocean, decimating everything that is in the way. And often you kill the ocean at 2 points, where you get the debris that you deposit and where you deposit it. And really, it makes no sense in this environment where sea level rise is a threat, because you are ever more close to the ocean and more vulnerable. Land reclamation takes long, it's expensive, and you're susceptible to liquefaction if there's an earthquake. And this is why Oceanics, the city of Busan, and UN Habitat are proposing floating infrastructure as a solution for climate adaptation and sustainable coastal expansion. As you can see from this picture, the city is floating above the surface of the water, and it's anchored to the seabed, so it does not float away. And on top, you have the buildings that are built. So this is a profile of what the city would look like. So essentially, we are creating new land. We are creating floating real estate for coastal cities to be able to expand sustainably onto the ocean. Because preaching that coastal cities should stop land reclamation will not stop it. Though countries are making great strides, China has banned commercial land reclamation. Citizens no longer accept this. We've seen demonstrations in Hong Kong against land reclamation, and we believe this is a viable solution to create new land. And what we are talking about is not just about technology and building floating infrastructure from a technological perspective, but this is really about redefining how human beings can create new communities to live together. You will see that on our teams, we have experts ranging from artists, sustainability experts. We've thought about the full range, and community experts. How will people live together as healthy communities, productive communities, and creating new cities where we actually know who our neighbors is, versus just tall buildings where we are isolated and alone. And this is what the city looks like from the bottom. So essentially, we are learning to live in harmony with nature and with the ocean. And we came from the ocean, and we are going back to the ocean. And the closer we are to the ocean, the more we will learn to care about it. Here you can see that underneath, we are growing coral. We can grow coral reefs from scratch through BioRock, which is a technology that our company utilizes. And we can employ 3D ocean farming and other measures to actually regenerate the marine ecosystem wherever we are, instead of decimating it through land reclamation. And what is beautiful about this is that we can scale this innovation. Look at how much water we have on the planet. And so this is the smallest unit of an oceanic city, and this is what we call the neighborhood. It's 2 hectares, and you can have up to 300 people living on it. And this 6 of these neighborhoods grow into a village. And 6 of these villages grow into a city of 10,000 people. What is also amazing about floating infrastructure, unlike building on land, is that you can reconfigure what you build because of the way that it is built and anchored to the seabed. Suppose you built a school or a hospital in a place and it no longer works for your needs, you can actually unplug the entire city, or you can unplug part of the city and move the school to another position. So this is a living city that responds and listens to the need of citizens, unlike building on land where once you build, that is the way it is. And longer term, which you would not try to do every time, if really there was a reason to move the entire city somewhere, you could unplug the entire city and move it elsewhere if conditions have changed. But what this also means is that we can deploy this in emergency situations. We could tow in housing when there's an earthquake. We could tow in schools where they are needed. We could tow in hospitals where they are needed. So this is one of the things that I find very exciting about floating infrastructure. This is a vision of the world's first sustainable floating city prototype, Oceanics Busan. We are really grateful to be working together with the city of Busan to develop this and UN Habitat. We unveiled this at the UN in April, at the second UN roundtable, what this looks like. And it captivated the imagination of the world. This was covered all around the world in every major media, worthy of 250 million of media. And this is amazing, and it shows that people are paying attention to what Busan is doing, and Busan is really leading on this. And why did we choose Busan? When we had the first roundtable with the UN in April of 2019, we had an outcome that we needed to build a prototype with the city. And we debated and analyzed 10 cities that we could work with, and Busan quickly rose to the top. Number one, because Busan is a credible maritime city and has a lot of experience, a lot of naval architecture, marine engineering skills that are applicable to what we're doing. And another reason is also that it has really stood in the way of developing floating infrastructure, because this is not a new idea. Smarter people than us have thought about it. But you need a government or political leadership and someone enthusiastic to champion this. And Mayor Park of Busan has really proven to be that champion for us, to be that champion not just for us, but in Busan, but for the entire world, because this is being developed for coastal cities around the world. And ultimately, also, it is really about the people, anything that you do. And Korea has a history of developing industries and dominating them around and leading. And so we felt that for a new technology such as this, under the leadership of the UN, that Korea would be the right place for us to develop this with the city of Busan. And we're so grateful for the opportunity. And these are some of the principles that we considered as we were building this city. We learned from the city of Busan itself, and sustainability and community habitat regeneration, all of these are important principles. We even learned from nature in the hexagon shape that we borrowed from the bees because of the efficiency in design. And all of our systems are closed loop and zero waste. So this means that nothing goes into the ocean. For example, if we utilize some water and it turns into that water, we can then feed to our gardens which then produce food for us. So the whole thing is closed loop. It keeps circling within. And I think that this is a beautiful way to live and a beautiful way to be. So there's a lot of emphasis on sharing as a community. And so this is a committed community that cares about living in harmony with nature and life below water. And our platforms are quite versatile. So here are the different things that you could do with the design of the platform. This is specifically focused on Busan. And there will be research, blue tech innovation and research that is going on this platform. This is very important. People will be able to live on this platform and no more families. People will also be able to visit the floating city short term. They may not be able to stay there long term, but they can come and go and share in their experience and spread the good news. And look at this. This is what a floating city or a marine city looks like. It's just like a normal city. Grandmas playing with their grandchildren, collecting flowers, gardening, nothing unusual. Beautiful people hanging out, and you can see the architecture is quite inspired by Busan and Korea. And this is what it looks like. It has the potential to grow, and Busan is leading in this. Korea is leading the world in this. Even though this is being developed in Busan and in Korea, it is a global partnership. Speaking about the theme of partnership, and truly, our team is from all around the world, from Europe, from Africa, from the United States, here in Korea, parts of Asia. And this is really exciting, and also speaks to the power of what technology can do in this era. And here we hope that this technology will move to the Middle East. Here is an application of what it might look like in the Middle East. Here is what it could look like in Africa. And this is in Europe. You can have a floating city in winter, no problem. And of course, other parts of Asia and Pacific Islands are very, very critical too, because some of them are facing an existential crisis. And if we can provide floating infrastructure for them as an alternative, then this will make a tremendous difference. And I just want to end by saying that we are convinced that humanity living on water is not only inevitable, it's imminent. People are talking about going to colonize Mars and live in Mars, and we wish them luck. And we love the space guys. They make us look sane talking about living on Mars. If you look at this, you can easily see that the ocean makes up more than 71% of the planet. This is a tremendous resource. The ocean literally has everything that we need to meet our shelter needs, our energy needs, our food needs, our mobility needs. And so it is inevitable that humanity will move onto the ocean. And we want to do that and set an example with Busan of doing this in a sustainable way under the leadership of the UN and set the right example. So this is not just about printing real estate. No, this is about the future of how humanity can live together, how we can organize ourselves. Do we think that it would be an easy task? No. But no new technology has ever been easy to implement. But with the partnerships that we have and the unity that we have around the oceans, we are confident that Busan and Korea will deliver this for the world. Thank you so much for your time.
We thank you so much for the wonderful keynote speech, giving the very insight into our second track. And 다시 한번
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Itai Matamombe. Please give her a big round of applause for her insightful keynote speech. We wanted to hear more from her. That is why we'd like to have this panel discussion for track 2. And the session will be moderated by Professor Hwa-Chol Song of Korea Maritime and Ocean University. And Professor Song earned his bachelor's and master's degrees in architectural engineering from Yangtze University and his doctorate degree in civil engineering from Stuttgart University in Germany. Thank you very much for your presence here. Now I'd like to hand the floor over to Professor Song for the panel discussion. Please give a big round of applause. Good afternoon. I am the Hwa-Chol Song, a moderator for this track 2 panel discussion on the climate crisis and floating city. In track 1, held a discussion on Ocean Expo 2030. And we just had the keynote presentation by Ms. Itai Matamombe, co-founder of Oceanics. And her presentation introduced the floating city and floating structure presentation. And I'd like to thank her for her punctuality so that we have the time for panel discussion. And I think what this really intrigued your curiosity and imagination, this concept of floating city. And we might be seeing this kind of city off the coast of Busan. That's quite exciting. If we work together, and I believe our dreams will come true, and I believe we are all into this together. The floating city, as explained by the keynote speaker, is in advanced technology to respond to the rising sea level. And I think this is a modern day of the Ark of Noah. And we are joined for the panel discussion by Professor Han-Seok Lee of Korea Maritime and Ocean University, as well as Mr. Jung Hyun of Ocean Space. We do not have enough time, so let us move directly into the panel discussion. And I'd like to start with Professor Lee's comment on the floating city prototype for about 7 to 8 minutes, which will be followed by Mr. Jung Hyun and any ideas for the future directions. And if time allows, I would like to turn to Ms. Itai Matamembe for her closing remarks. And that's how we will run this panel discussion for track 2. Now I'd like to turn to Professor Lee for his comment. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Floating city. I think the study has begun quite a long time ago. I think over the past 10 years or so, we have conducted a research into floating city concept. Many people were involved in this technology, believing that this will be a reality at some point. Then I'm so great to see the feasibility of this idea at this larger scale forum, global forum. Which part of the floating city should I be focused on? Which will be an important point. I gave it a thought as I prepared for this panel discussion. Well, as you know, the Busan is a coastal city. And there are many coastal cities. And I believe a floating city should be understood in connection with the coastal cities. The idea of building a city floating on the ocean is to tackle the challenges facing coastal cities. From the end of 1950s, throughout the globe, various ideas have been proposed in order to address the challenges facing the coastal cities. And building a city in the ocean, well, actually represented some utopia. So this is a realization of our dreams, long sought after dreams. I think, well, our approach should be based on our proper understanding of the coastal cities. That would be the proper way for us to design a floating city. The foundation of the coastal cities is the ocean. Ocean as a resource. You can look at the ocean from various perspectives, but my understanding of the ocean is in space. As the keynote speaker mentioned, most of the coastal cities do not have a space to further expand. They have this shortage of land. So how to make the most of the ocean as the extension of the cities? This is quite critical to ensure sustainability of the coastal cities. So the coastal cities are making efforts to utilize the ocean as the space of their living and life in a sustainable manner. In addition to that, we should have a fresh view on the ocean. So far, our approach has been land-centric, even for coastal cities. I jokingly say that when I have a meeting with a professor based in Seoul, I say that if Seoul is a coastal city, what would have happened? I think the concept of city would have been completely different, and there would be heightened level of respect for coastal cities. So at least for Busan, the coastal city, we should have an ocean-centric approach. That should be how we view the land. And second, we need to have a clear vision as two cities, encompassing not just land but also the ocean. How to sustainably make the most of the ocean space. These are the questions we should propose, and the floating city was proposed as an answer to those questions. The floating city has incorporated advanced technologies, but since it is surrounded by the ocean, the city is rather unique. Since it is a floating city, it might have some influences emotionally and in terms of their livelihood and economically and financially. We should consider these aspects and attributes in building a floating city. In particular, as for a floating city, it has a great potential to be sustainable. There are various renewable energy sources we can utilize for the power generation for the floating city. And Korea is surrounded by mountains. So in order to build a city in the middle of the country, we do not have any other option but to destroy mountains and lumber trees. But as we have seen in the image of the Oceanics Busan, as for the floating city, you can reconfigure and you can put together different units to form a village or to form a city. And if one unit got antiquated, then you can replace that one unit with a new one to extend the lifespan of a city. So, considering all these aspects, I believe the floating city is the way for a coastal city like Busan to make the most of the ocean in a creative manner and build a new city for the future. So I believe this is a brilliant idea for Busan to explore. We have this plan to build Oceanics Busan, which was presented at UN in April. And this project, to be successful in Busan, I believe there are three prerequisites we have to address. The first is site. Since this is a floating city, its relationship with the existing coastal city should be considered. And the various physical characteristics as well as the climate conditions of the ocean should be taken into consideration in selecting a site, but that is easier said than done. This is not something one decision maker can do. So I believe a proper siting should be studied thoroughly. And the second is social consensus. The citizens should have a better understanding as to the floating city. And there should be a social consensus that now is the time for us to introduce this concept of floating city. And the third prerequisite is legislation. We need to have laws and regulations in order to introduce this concept. This is the end of my comment. Thank you.
네, 이한숙 교수님.
Thank you, Professor Lee, for your comment. So, as you know, the 70% of the Earth is the sea. So, making use of the oceanic space is something that we really have to pay heed to. So, I hope that there will be more and growing discussions on how to utilize ocean spaces. And also, he talked about the need for social consensus. And oftentimes, I say that the marine space is a public good. So, how to make use of them. In determining that, I think social consensus is critical, although the Minister Cho is no longer with us. But I think this is something that we have to ask to him, so which is the legal framework. So I hope that all these things will be in place so that we can have a successful floating city here in Busan. Now, Mr. Chung Hyun. Yes, good afternoon. I am Chung Hyun, CEO of Ocean Space. Today, I would like to introduce to you the floating island on the Han River of Seoul, because among the existing buildings, I believe it presents a glimpse that's closest to what will happen with the Busan floating city. So this floating island has been under operation for more than 10 years now. It's a floating facility established on the river. And what Oceanics plans for, so the floating city, it's going to be situated in the Busan Bukang port. And Busan Bukang port is also surrounded by hinterland and other hilly areas. So pretty similar with the floating island of Seoul. And although it's situated on the river, so you may think that the river is not as dangerous as sea. But the Han River, it has a very wide, big width, over 1 meter wave, and also flow speed. During the float, it goes up to 3 meters per second. And also the fluctuation is pretty severe between the normal time and the flooding time. So in that sense, the environment is hostile, maybe as hostile as the ocean environment. Some of you may not be familiar with the floating island. It's located in the southern part of the Pampo Bridge of the Han River, and the construction was complete in 2011 with a cost of around 74 billion won. The floating island consists of the 3 floating structures constructed with steel, as well as connecting bridges that connect the 3 floating structures. So you can see the picture here. And for its architecture design, so it has the shape of the flower blown on the Han River that goes in harmony with the surrounding environment. Now, this is the drawing. So here you see the 3 islands. So we call it island number 1, 2, and 3. So the first island, that's the largest one, and this is called Island Vista. And its floor area is about 4,700 square meter, and it's 3-story building above ground with 25 meter in height. And inside, it consists of the multiple purpose hall, cafeteria, and some retail stores. Island 2, so which is closer to the Pampo Bridge. This is called Island Viva, and it has the floor area of 3,300 square meter. Again, same 3-story building with 20 meter in height. And inside of it, there are culture experience zone, cafe, and bar. And the third island, which is situated in the middle of the river, It's called Terra. It's the smallest, with the floor area of 1,200 square meter, and it has a two-story building with 12 meter in height. It has leisure facilities, clubhouse, and retail stores. The total area of the three islands, including the connecting bridge, that spans around 10,000 square meter. Here again, you see the drawing, 2D drawing. So there are three islands on the surface, but under the sea, there are very complicated mooring facilities. Why? Because these floating facilities, they should be kept in the right place regardless of the weather abnormalities. Otherwise, they will be carried away. So in order to prevent that, we have to have a mooring facility. So for example, like on the Han River, sometimes strong wind or gust can blow anytime. And we have a three-story building here. And so with the strong wind, the island could be drifted sideways. And also if there is a heavy downpour in the upstream area, then it can lead to flood and high river level with the increase in flow velocity as well as the current load. So in order to prevent floating facilities from being carried away to the downstream, there must be strong mooring facilities to buttress them up. And during the normal operation, so we have the mooring chain, anchor system, and real-time winch system. So regardless of the wind velocity, winch system provides a very precise control on a real-time basis to keep the movement of the floating structures within 1 meter range, and therefore people inside cannot really feel any kind of impact. And also during the emergency situations such as flood, the winch system releases the structure, and the floating structure will be held only by the mooring chain and anchor system. And also, if there is really a heavy flood that could hit the bridge, it can lead to a serious accident. So in order to ensure accident-proof protection, and also to prevent the breaking of the mooring chain, we adopted the so-called three-layer safety system. So I think that the natural disaster can occur in Busan, and that's why we have to take into consideration and come up with very meticulous design for the mooring system to ensure full safety. And this is another drawing. So the blue indicates the sea level in the normal operation, and red indicates the water level during the flood. So you can see that the water level goes up very significantly during the flood. Sometimes the islands can move 9 meters downstream due to a high current load that may occur during the flood. And then it can collide with other islands as well. And therefore, in order to avoid that collision, sufficient separation distance should be secured. So if Bukang has multiple floating structures, then you have to thoroughly review how far a floating structure can move during the typhoon or other floods to ensure foolproof safety. And also the floating island, it's a waterfront cultural space. It offers Seoul citizens with a space for enjoy cultural activities, as well as it works as a landmark. So it provides a resting place for citizens in the midst of the busy urban area. As you know, nowadays shopping malls have become very popular, and people shop, dine, and enjoy culture all in the same shopping mall. And so nowadays, we see increasing number of visitors during the weekends in these shopping malls. So the floating island, although it's small, but we also have large crowd visiting every weekend. But compared to the general shopping malls, the floating island, it offers a open outdoor space where people can enjoy both nature and shopping and dining and everything. That's why it's very popular. among the citizens. This is the nightscape of the nightscape, and so when the floating city is established in the Busan port, I hope that you can also create a beautiful nightscape to serve as a landmark that represents the Busan city. So in that sense, I hope that we can have the floating city in Busan, which will be a landmark. And also I hope that we can have the large-scale yacht marina in Busan. So because these are the public facilities, so they will provide convenience and also the pleasure, not just to Busan citizens, but also to the visitors of Busan. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chang Hyun, for your insightful comment. When we first talk about floating city, I mentioned that this is dreams come true. But in an ordinary setting, well, many people ask, how is it possible for a city to float? But since we have so many experts in the area of shipbuilding and oceans, I think many people have a very high level of existing understanding as to the floating city. So this is technically feasible, as confirmed by Mr. Chang Hyun. And we have the floating island in the Han River, and it has been safe and functions as a building. So I think this is the confirmation as to that fact. I think safety is the most important factor when it comes to the floating city, and I believe this can be addressed successfully as well. We have a little bit of time to turn to Ms. Itai Matamembe for her final comment.
Thank you very much. As an African, I really believe that I should not speak after my wise elders have spoken. And truly, it's an injustice and an embarrassment that I gave the keynote in your presence. Even before we founded the company Oceanics and had the agreement with Busan, we were translating your papers online, Professor Song, Professor Lee, learning from the work that you have been doing for many, many years. This is truly like a culmination of your dreams, and we're just so grateful to be a part of it, and we are grateful to be part of the same team with you. And so I just really want to end by saying that Korea is really the perfect place for this to happen. We didn't know that we were coming to Busan, Korea, when we were starting the work that you did. And when you look at these two men sitting here on the stage, and yourself as well, because you actually have the living proof, they are pioneers in the industry, respected everywhere around the world. And sometimes people say a prophet is not without honor, but in their own country. And so I just really want to bear witness to the greatness of all of you and pioneering this industry. And I think it fits perfectly that we get the opportunity to do this in Busan. And I hope to continue to learn from you. You've been great mentors, great friends, and in moving forward with this dream that we share with all of you. So really, let me just say thank you, and be a good African and not speak after my elders. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much. Thank you for such a compliment. Thank you very much. Truth be told, yes, Korea is #1 in shipbuilding and also in semiconductor industry. But for marine, especially the development sector, I think Korea is a little bit lagging behind. But 20 years ago, I went to Japan and learned their expertise, and I've been in this field for about 20 years. And somehow, now I've found that Korea has one of the top class marine engineers, including the Mr. Chang Hyun. So I'm very thankful to the Itai Matamembe for selecting Busan as the host of the floating city. And I think that the Busan's expertise and expertise of the marine engineers have actually contributed to her choice. So now is the time for me to make the concluding remarks. As you know, the climate crisis, it really requires a whole world global cooperation and concerted efforts. And in this field, the Busan metropolitan government is now pursuing the floating city development project. And by doing so, it actually exerts its leadership. So I feel very proud of that. And also for this prototype project. So now I'm very pleased to promote this project at this World Ocean Forum and also through the Busan Daily newspaper. So as a citizen of Busan, as well as an expert in this field, I strongly support this project. If possible, I sincerely hope that the 2030 World Expo will take place in Busan. And as mentioned by the Ms. Itaimata Mumba, the model for the floating city for Busan, I hope that this dream could really become a reality in year 2030 when Busan hosts the World Expo. I hope that this floating city will be a landmark for the Busan World Expo in 2030 so that everyone in the world will watch that. And also, this will be remembered as a historic building for the entire world. So with that, we would like to conclude the track 2 panel discussion session. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Well, this was a session that we could look into the future of the floating city. I could see that we have such a great project going on, and we could feel the passion and dedication of those who are in the field. I'd like to thank all the panelists, the presenter, as well as the moderator. The Expo and the floating city. And in track 2, we had a discussion on the topic of climate crisis and the floating city. Those two agendas are the timely topics for the hyper-ocean era. And I believe other sessions of World Ocean Forum will cover various other relevant topics. I'd like to ask for your continued interest and support and participation. This concludes World Ocean Forum's opening ceremony. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you.
잠시 장례 정리 후에 해양인의 밤 행사가 이어집니다.
We will soon start the Korea Marine Owners Network night once the stage becomes ready. So, and this is only for those who are invited or those who have the red name card. And also in the Pearl Room, there is a reception. So before we have the Korea Marine Owners Network night, we are going to have a reception event. And then please come back.